to get to where we're going. Okay, so recording start now. All right, because I wanted us to move from where we were to where we're going to. So under the topic business policy, we shall be looking at all of these issues. What is policy? Okay, how does it differ from objectives? And how does it differ from procedure? We remember our model from the beginning, right? How does policy differ from objectives? How does policy differ from strategy? How does policy differ from procedures? Okay. What is the nature of policy? When you hear policy, what comes to mind? What are the types of policies that we have? The different bases upon which policies are formulated. Okay. The types of policies from how they are formulated or from how they are taken seriously or lightly, as the case may be. What are the principles of policy making? You have to study that. Okay. Then business policy conceptual framework. The conceptual framework of business policy. Then elements and processes of business policy. And then we look at features of business policy, and then major functions and scope also of business policy. So this brings us to the model that we've worked with from the beginning of the session until now. Okay, so we have discussed business objectives, right? And then we have also gone to discuss strategy and strategic management. That was in our last class. So tonight we'll be discussing policies. Maybe just a little one line on procedures. Excuse me, let me admit that person. So maybe just one line on procedures. But from this diagram, we can see that policies are not business objectives. Policies are not the same thing as strategies. Neither are they the same thing as business objective. Policy is not the same thing as vision, mission, objective, goals. Okay, policy is what it is. Okay, policies and processes or procedures are used to see the arrow pointing back to strategy. Are used on the strategy. What do you do with strategy? You implement them. Strategies are meant to be implemented. So policies are used to guide the implementation of actions or strategies towards the achievement of the objectives. So one word comes to mind. Okay, I want us to cover a whole lot tonight because anyway, yeah, we need to cover a whole lot tonight. There's a lot we need to cover. Let's see how far we can go. So that many of you didn't come early to class this evening. I don't really know how far we're gonna do it. But looking at it, when you hear the word policy, that's what should come to your mind. What do you see on my screen? What did I highlight just now?
Guide, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being there. Guide. It's not an action. It's simply a guide. A guide to an action. Look at it like this. I've always used a few organizations as examples. So let's us stick with them. A very good example should be banks. Okay. Let's use a UBA bank, UBA for example, United Bank of Africa. The headquarters, I believe, should still be in what do you call that place now? It's in Lagos, but wasn't that what that Broad Street, right? Broad Street, Lagos. It's where you have the headquarters of many of these banks, and UBA too was there. I don't know whether it's still there. So when the CEOs and the chief this and chief that, okay, where they work from, that's where they work from, the headquarters. That's where it's expected that they work from. But any UBA branch you go to, you'll be surprised at the similarity. with which they operate. But it's not the same management that you have in Broad Street, Lagos, that you have in UBA branch Zaria, UBA branch Abuja, UBA branch Kwara. You name your area. But anywhere you go, some days you find out that they're all wearing sky blue top with a red tie. And then there's an approach to which they treat customers, or at least should treat customers. The way they operate that it seems to be uniform across all their branches. And the same applies to almost all banks that you must have been to. Have you observed that? Why do you think it is so? Are you following me now? Why do you think it's so? Somebody tell us why. Let me hear from you.
Because
Why do you
the
think it's so?
guidelines are given to them.
Say it again. Say it again, please. Everybody listen to that.
Because it's a guideline that have been given to the employees.
Exactly. The guidelines that have been given to them from the top, so that the owners of the company, they don't need to be in that branch before the way they want things to be done should be that way, should be the exact way that things are done in that branch. But they're not the one taking the actions. So you see that policies are not actions. Policies are the guidelines. Policies are not the actions. Policies are the guidelines. So when the branch manager is taking actions, even actions that go as far as business decisions, okay, decisions around giving people loans or treating customers, that is taking these guidelines, is taking these actions based on the guidelines that have been given from the top in such a way that even if it was Tony Elumelu, for example, that was in the branch attending the customer, he would have still treated the customer the same way because of what? Policies. So policies are very, very much needed, especially when the people who we implement strategies, the people who we carry out actions are not, you need to get employees. You need to come to a point where your business grows and you have employees. So employees are the ones carrying out actions, not you anymore. How do you make your employees carry out actions in line with your expectation? That's the word policy. So policy is the word for businesses. Policy is the word for government as well. So the one for government is called public policy. One for businesses are called what? Business policy. But look at this line. It said policies are what? Guidelines. They guide the decisions and actions of organizational representatives in line with the expectation of top management. That's all. So, um, um, strategy versus policy. That was the first place we put them together. So you see, those actions now could be the strategy. They're actually the strategies broken down into pieces. Meanwhile, strategies are the plans that translate into actions. Then, policies are the ideas that guide the implementation of, okay, those actions, those strategies, right? Good. So we say here, the relationship between policy and strategy and objectives is still what you find in this arrow, in this model. Policies ensure that there is a proper guidance as strategies are being implemented. And when strategies are being implemented, they are ensure that they are to make sure that objectives are achieved. Okay, good. Excuse me. All right. So, um, in this note, we'll still look at the text, but in your courseware. But in this note, we're going to look at the nature of policy. So when you hear policy from this now, there's something that comes to mind. Policies come from the top. That is primarily the nature of policy. It's a top management issue. It comes from the top. Policies are actually finalized to come from the top. The top may not be the source of the policy, but they are the final. They're the ones that will finalize and approve a policy. So we say the implementation is expected to be in line with top management original intention. Top management establish patterns and guidelines to influence middle management decisions and actions toward the achievement of the top management objectives. Okay, but we'll still see more of this nature of policy in your courseware. I think it's time I even looked deeper to see how I can even upgrade this write up here. But now let's look at types of policies. Okay, policies are typified, types of policies. So we can look at it from different perspectives. One of the perspectives you can look at it from is the perspective of how they are formed. How did this policy come to be? That's the first one. And under this perspective, we have four policies. Then you can also look at it from other perspectives, written and unwritten policies, okay, formal or what they say official policies. You may be referring to the same thing when you say formal policy and written policies. You can might be referring to the same thing, but the perspectives with which I want you to look at them might differ. Okay, unwritten policies can also be referred to as the informal ones as well. That means the informal policies are usually unwritten. Okay, then we also have the point D, based on subject matter. Okay, based on what they cover, they can be called general policies or specific policies. So I'm giving you five now, right? The fifth one is based on the scope. How wide? When I say scope now, how wide are they going to cover the entire organization, or they're going to be speaking to probably the finance department or finance issues, or you know what I'm saying, right? So that's it. So we're going to look at each and every one of them. I want to look at them very well and understand them, right? So where do we start from? Let's start from policies that are based on how they are formed. Okay. So the initial policies that management formulates. That's what is called what? Original policies. But when you see policies that are called appealed policies come from down up, right? And from that up, there's an approval before it takes effect. Just to say there's something that's going on in the branches or at the lower level that is happening probably repeatedly, and every time they have to go and consult senior management. No, there has to be a way to arrive at that decision there, so that we don't have to keep disturbing senior management, and then they take a lot of time before those things are processed. So the management at the lower level can now bring it up to the senior level and say, "See you, let's tackle this issue with a policy." Then the management will look into it and then they approve. That's what we call appealed policies. Policies that come from lower management. You see them, you check your courseware and see how they are. This how is written. Implied, implied policy. That word implied or imply in present tense, or when you say implied, they actually refers to an adjective used there as an adjective. Okay, a verbal adjective. Or when you say implication, or when you say like what something means. Now that word is gotten from law. Law, there's something in law of contract called implication by conduct, implied by conduct. Okay. Now, meaning when somebody has not said anything, but from his actions, you know exactly what it means. I hope you understand what that means. That's what it simply means by implication by conduct, implied by conduct. So when you bring it now to policy formulation, it means it refers to those kind of things that have become policies based on how you see senior managers behaving. How do they address these issues? Nobody told you that you should address these issues like this, but the fact that you've seen your senior manager operate like that, one, two, three, you should know that that's the way to go. If you do otherwise, yeah. So that's an implied policy. It usually may not even be written anywhere else. Neither may it may not even be taught, but you get to understand it from the conduct of senior staff. Then of course the last one, externally imposed. When it is imposed from outside the organization, and this can be the job of either the government or trade associations or anything that pushes pressure down to the throat of the management, and then the policy just comes up very quickly. They say something need my attention on my, what's that needs my attention? Okay, so I believe we're still recording. So let's just continue recording as we're discussing, right? Right. Good. So a second please. Okay, okay. All right. So let's look at the other types. These ones definitely B and C are not difficult to think about now. When you say written policy, that means the policy is written down, right? When you say written policy, that means the policy is not written, but it's everywhere. Like that implied policy now is usually unwritten. Okay. When you say formal, it's an official policy, management stamped on it. Most of these ones are usually written, and they're not so flexible. Oh, man, this is air is fresh. This is fresh air coming in now. Okay, so when you say informal policies, they may not be taken as the formal thing, but it's actually a hidden policy. Oh my goodness, I love the way this is operating my organization. There's no written policy on this matter, but everybody knows the way to go. You know exactly what to do. How? Because of the way the things have been done over time, right? But look at these ones, specific policies. Specific policies are for those issues that usually happen over and over and over and over. It usually comes up repeatedly that needs to be treated every day. Like coming late. This or this you come late, you come late. They just put a policy. You come late any day, you pay 5,000 naira. Okay. And then are you raising your hand if you don't want to ask any question, bring your hand down. General
I want to ask,
policies.
sir. I
Okay,
want to ask, sir.
just note your question down, okay, so that I'll find somewhere and stop. Then I'll give you an opportunity to ask. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. So specific policies and general policies. So look at them there. General policies are focused on areas that are not so frequent. But the part I also want to bring your attention to is the area, is scope of coverage in terms of major and minor policies, right? So when you say major policies, it's a major matter. Just the way that if Tinubu says subsidy is gone, subsidy is gone is a major policy. I hope you know that it affected the entire nation. Imagine that Nigeria is your company, and that's something like that. But a minor policy might just affect one aspect of it. Okay, so I think it's a good place to stop. Let me take these questions very quickly before we rush into the other things. All right, please go on, madam, and take a question, please.
Okay, sir. My name is Chika. Sir, please, I don't know. Is there any difference between informal and implied?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. So there's first of all, I don't want to look at them as in different categories. They are as if they are in different baskets, but they usually mean the same thing. In they can mean the same thing. You can say that all implied policies are usually informal, and they are even usually unwritten. You are very correct to say that. But when we're discussing them, we're looking at them from these different perspectives. So that's why we might think that it's different. Okay, that's just exactly what I'm trying to say. If you understand me, you look at them as if they are in
Okay.
different baskets. This one is in a different group, but when you now begin to bring it, oh, this one that is in that group is the same. Is the same characteristics that it's exhibiting with, oh, with this one here too. That means it's the same thing. Okay, yeah. So I want
Okay,
you to
sir.
understand
Thank
that
you.
implied. Don't mistake it with appealed. The way the synonym, the antonyms now sound. Or say antonyms, words that sound alike. Implied, appealed. You know what implied means? I've explained what it means, what is the term implication by conduct means. Okay. Yeah. Like when a young man is trying to, or a young lady is trying to throw a green flag to a young man. She has not said anything yet, but is it green flag they call it now, or red flag? Red flag. She hasn't said anything
It
yet, but
depends on the context.
You say it depends. Oh my goodness.
Depends of the
Okay, now.
context. Yes, might be creative one, might be. I don't know. It depends.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. All right, so let's move on to establishment of policies. Mind you, we're going to run through this in again in our notes because I don't want you to miss any stone. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We said how establishment of policies, how do policies come to play, or what are the things that happen there? Okay. We said all those repetitive issues majorly. I gave an example of late coming back because people come to work every day and definitely there may have to be late coming issues. Late coming policies around late coming is common, so anybody can understand this particular one. Okay. So we said that most big organizations have established policies. They even have what they call policy manual, policy handbook. But small organizations, it may just be written somewhere. It may not even be written, it may just be understood by all the workers. But they know that they know how it works. Okay, we've already discussed these differences, so you know what they mean. You know that policy is not the same thing as an objective, and that's not the same thing as a procedure. A procedure is simply a way through which things are done. And that process can also put together, can amount to a policy on how certain things should be done, which is actually very interesting. Something you call SOP. Some of you must have heard about the term, right? E.g., let me add this now. SOP. SOP is um, short for standard operating procedure. Okay, let me give you a simple example of it. For instance, I work in the human resource department currently. Before you do a recruitment, there has to be steps. Number one, step one, there will be a request from the department. After that, you send an email. There will be an approval. After approval, you proceed to do the advert. You see all these procedures now. That procedure, when you put all these procedures together, that in itself is enough to be called a policy for recruitment. Okay, yeah, or the steps, so to speak, or the action, so to speak. All right. This point, we're talking about intricacies of policy decisions. Intricacies. Remember minor and major policies. There are major policies are policies that affect the entire organization. Those are serious matters. Are you getting me now? So you cannot just come out and say policy subsidy is gone in your own company. In a company that has different branches and different departments. Okay, that's an intricate issue. You know what the meaning of the word intricate? Or you can also say it's delicate. Uh-huh. Right? It's delicate. So if you make it anyhow, if you find out the way it's going to rock around your entire organization, man. Okay. So you say an organization is like that too, having different branches, different whatever. So any policy that you see, it has implication. And the implication is that it's going to affect the entire organization, both internally and externally. What does this simply mean? There has to be a thorough consideration before policies are formulated. Policies are not just formulated overnight. Okay, so we'll also look down in your notes and look at principles of policy setting and then how policies help organizations to be effective. Okay, you also see that. Okay, organizations are actually effective if there's coordinated effort. And what makes effort to be coordinated is policies. People are meant to do their work when they work, when they're supposed to. They're not forced, they're not cajoled, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, that gives us the effectiveness that we need in organizations, just through the use of what policies. And then business policy, the framework now, the conceptual framework, we'll also see that. I want us to look at this one directly from your courseware. Okay, because I need to review all of these things and update them too, so that they will capture more of what is your courseware again, and also in a simplified manner. So let's just jump to your courseware while we look at this other thing: scope of business policy. What are the factors that determine business policy? I think that's where you will see both the internal factors and the external factors. What are the functions of business policy? You will check them as well. What are the qualities of good business policies? Good business policies must be specific, it must be clear, reliable, it must be uniform across board. They must be appropriate, they must be simple, they must be inclusive and comprehensive, and they must be flexible, and they must be stable. Okay, so here we have the courseware on the study session on policy, conceptual meaning of policy. So we've laid all those background. Okay, we've laid all those background from the notes. So I believe you should understand what it's about. Okay, so the nature of policy is the first thing that this material is starting with, and it goes to tell you how these things should come, stemming from the fact that the top management has a lot of responsibilities on top of their shoulders. Okay, they have a lot of responsibilities. They have a lot of responsibilities. Okay, yeah. So in order to make sure that everything goes in the best interest of those responsibilities, then they now have to formulate policies to make sure that's done. We've talked about that also. They call them matters of highest priority. That's what we call strategic issues. Those are issues that usually should their bring the attention, call the attention of top management. Okay, and these are usually the issues where policies have to be formulated over. And then from here, they started telling you what's the meaning of policy, which we've discussed also, and then so on and so forth. Let's go to the next section and see what we have. All right. Yes, with many things here that when you read them, you don't even know where you are again. Okay. Good. So establishing policy, we read this as well from our note, and we're talking about why, as in how policies should be established in organizations, both big and small. There are actually policies everywhere. Okay, it's just that some organizations are so small that you may not really know what their policies are. And majority of these policies are usually unwritten, or that doesn't mean they're not. That doesn't mean they're unofficial, but they're usually unwritten and in most cases implied by conduct. All right. Okay, so I've explained all of this original policy, the ones that come directly from top management, appeal policies, when field managers are confronted with situations that they don't have authority to take decision, they report it to the top, and as long as it keeps repeating itself, then there will be a policy for it. Then implied policies, when you draw meaning, you are the one that is drawing meaning from the actions of your supervisor, your superior. Superior, oh, what happened here? Oh my goodness. Okay, we're not so far. I pressed the wrong button actually. Okay, so here we are looking at externally imposed policies. I finished this one, right? Implied policies and then externally imposed policies. And then they're looking at the other groupings now. Informal versus formal. Right? Look at these ones. One thing should catch your attention here. Okay. Okay. How do new employees, how do they get to understand the policies of an organization, especially the ones that are not written? Uh, Many of these things are learned on the job while you are working. While they are working, then they begin to get used to how things are done here. That is the policy now. Okay, but in the majority of cases, it's even easier for those staff to be assigned. You have a peer or a body in the organization, a body that will guide you through and help you understand the policies very, very quick. Okay. Yeah. We said many companies purposely do not write out many of their established policies. Okay. Yes. There are some things that are confidential, that is only available in the hearing, but not in the written document because it can go anywhere. Okay. But look at this question. How can a new employee, right, learn informal policies in an organization? How can a new employee, okay, learn informal policies? Policies are not written down, they're not formal. And they answer them here. They say number one, when an employee spends a long time in an organization, they can learn them. But if he's going to learn it in a short period of time, it means there has to be a very intensive period of training by somebody an old member who already knows this thing. Okay, so that's what will help them. So you can read up into these depths. I'm saying this because I want to read, when you're reading this part, read into the depths here. Okay, read into the depths and see all these points where you see what are the advantages of written policies, written formal policies. Okay, read these advantages of written formal policies and then see what they wrote there. I'm not going to read that for you because you can read very, very well, and I trust you for that. Okay, so just go through those ones yourself. The principles of policy making. Number one, it should be definite, it should be positive, it should be clear, it should be understandable to everyone in the organization. Number two, policies should we should be able to translate policies into practices, into terms, into the peculiarities of every department or division of the enterprise. Okay, I've read two, read number three, number four, number five. They're just straightforward write-ups. Those are principles. In other words, when you're setting up policies in your organization, pay attention to all the points that are being raised. Points that are being raised here. Okay. I've discussed this influence of policies on organizational effectiveness. Okay. Organizations need to be effective so that they can achieve their objective. And in order to do that, people cannot just work haphazardly, anyhow. You know, there'll be some laxity or some no. Policies are what come up to ensure people do what they should do when they should do it. That's what this whole place is saying. So read it very well so that you understand how policies are established, and then there's an authority that is following what is called that delegation, that's also making it possible for line managers, no matter how small they are, to enforce work in their departments or units. Okay, so we're wrapping up this topic shortly. The business policy framework. Okay, I'm not so sure it's been long I read this part, but I'm just looking at it. The business policy framework. Let's look at it together. Let's see how fast we can go. Okay, we said according to William F. Gluck, development in business policy arose from the developments in the use of planning techniques by managers. Okay, starting from day-to-day planning in the early times, managers try to anticipate the future. That's how they now prepare budgets, use control systems, and so on and so forth. Right. So, so these techniques cannot really, you know, predict the future as much as they can. They started having evolutions into what we have today, strategic management. So policies came up so that it can show the areas where people can make decisions. And once it goes outside that area, they need approval from the top. That's simply what that part is saying. Okay. So we said business policies are guidelines developed by an organization to govern its actions they define the limit within which decisions must be made. Okay, so business policy also deals with the acquisition of resources and with the organizational goals. Okay, the resources with which the organizational goals can be achieved. Now, I want you to be seeing the different areas where policies touch. Number one, the limits, okay, within which decisions must be made. It covers acquisition of resources. It covers the roles of staff and the responsibilities of top management, especially on significant issues that bear on organizational success. Okay, so put together, it presents a framework for understanding strategic decision making. I love this part because now what I see here is your understanding of policies and all of those puts you in a position where you now think well before arriving at what strategy decisions. Okay, so study all of those things that are there and identify a few things around that framework, and then the policy, the problems of business policy. You can see this here. There's no subheading for it, so be careful that you're not forgetting something behind. Okay, that's that. There's so much here that I'm not seeing as necessary. This part, elements and processes. There's a mistake somewhere here that I want to pay attention to, because there's another place that also have elements. You need to know which one is which one. Features of policies. Okay. This 2.7 should not be features. Okay. Keep it there as qualities. That's what we call qualities of policies, qualities of good business policies. Okay. Please take note of that. Then I can see many hands up. You want to bombard me now, right? Then elements or the features. Okay. So read them that way. When you're reading, read them that way. Read, you've had enough, guys. So go ahead and ask a question. Let's see, because we're coming to an end of the end of this session.
Good evening, sir.
Evening, so you're welcome.
Thank you, sir. So I said, please, I need a more clarity. Is there any differences between the business policy and policy itself?
Okay, so you can
Thank you,
look
sir.
at it as policy generally is what it is. When you use it in business, then you can now call it business policy. When you use it in the government sector, you can now call it public policy. Okay, that's just what it is. So that's just what it is. I hope you understand that now.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
All right, thank you so much. So, factors that affect policies. I think that's where we should be by now. Someone wants to join. Factors that affect business policy. Where is it? Well, because intricacies already. Factors that affect policies are both internal factors, which the organization can control, and external factors, which are uncontrollable. Okay. So take note of this. You might see this in your exam. I don't know. I think maybe like that. The factors that affect business policy. Okay. You have to now pinpoint all the internal factors. You see, there are internal factors that affect before a policy is arrived at. We need to consider a lot of things: the mission, the objectives, the resources, and the management values. But externally, you need to consider also the industry structure. Okay, if it's like a banking industry, for example, you need to know, yeah, the structure of that banking industry. That's what this means. Then you consider the economic environment, the political environment. This one is a very crucial factor in today's Nigeria. The political environment, man, let's just leave it. The social environment and then the technological environment. Okay, I hope that's straightforward. Factors that affect business policies internally and externally. Okay, so looking at the scope, The scope. We already talked about this, a little of this during within the framework, but still look at it anyway. Look at it as the areas that business policies can touch. Okay, we're making reference to major policies and minor policies. I think that's what this one is all about. Which area does it touch? It covers functional areas, it covers departmental areas, it covers every subject that affects the interest of the organization. So you might find out that policies are unlimited in their approach, right? That's everything that they want you to know in this course. Do you have any questions right now? No questions. So let us jump to the next topic. Let me give you a minute. If you have a question, raise your hand and let's take it on policy. So you're going to do a deep dive. You're going to do a really, really deep work, okay, on this, on policies, looking at all the factors that we brought out here. This is 927. Let us do a quick walk on. Let me set you on for the next topic, which is actually uh taking you more into strategic management. Okay, the topic here is what? Environmental analysis. I want you to study this deep down. I think maybe I should make your group assignment come from here. Okay. Now let's link it back to the first topic we had when we were looking at business environment. Okay. So the reason why business issues around business environment have to be learned is because the things that happen in all of those business environments, they have a way of affecting the outcomes of business. So business must keep studying them and study the changes in them. Okay, for example, the political environment. Nobody needs anyone to tell them they need to pay attention to that. The economic environment, the legal environment, the technological, those are all external. Or is it internal? I want to talk about looking at your employees, your manpower, your machinery, comparing your machinery with existing technology. All the same, Sha. What the topic is telling you is that organizations study their environment and learn from it. Okay, the learnings through the learnings, they are able to establish a strategic direction for their company. Okay, so that was how we structured the entire lecture. But let's go up a little bit. Okay, I'm not going to start this defining what analysis means or what environment. Basically, you should know that or what you find in the internal environment is what gives us the S and W, which are called strengths and weaknesses. The strength of an organization and the weaknesses are internal, but externally you have opportunities and threats. So what is environmental analysis? The continuous activity of examining the internal environment and the external environment of business. Why? So that you get information which determine management decision. Okay, management decision is based on information, so there has to be a continuous activity that feed management with the right information, and this is done through a concept that is called environmental scanning. That scanning is to make sure that what the environment wants and what you are giving out, there is a match, there's no mismatch anywhere. Okay, good. So what is environmental scanning? This one now brings out the step-by-step decisions, monitoring, evaluating, and disseminating information from the external environment to the key people within the organization so that they can act, they can respond decisively. Okay, so this is what you call strategic management audit. And I'm going to bring it here again. Strategic management audit. It's not the same thing as the normal audits that you know at the end of that's financial audits. Okay, financial audit is not the same thing as strategic management audit. Even in strategic management audit, there's still the audit of finance and accounting departments and their units and their issues. But that's different from financial audit. Okay. Financial audit is meant to catch thief. to know whether they are lying or they are saying is true, what they are saying, what they are presenting in the books, okay, is really showing the truth. That's what financial audit does. Okay, yeah. So this is the diagram we'll be working with. Okay, that means every aspect of this information of the business rather will be providing information per time. Every aspect. That's what it simply means. Could be from the internal and from the external aspect, or from the direct or the indirect aspect. So I'm just setting you on so that by the time we come to our next class, we'll be going deep into this course. This is the heart of it. I won't be coming here anymore. We'll just jump straight to our courseware. So look into the areas given. What are the areas? One by one, you're going to look into the competitors. What are the questions asked? How is the audit on competitors carried out? If you have anything on customers, do the same thing, or on suppliers, or if you have anything on the economic aspect, you do the same thing. You have something on the social democratic. What are the questions? What are the issues that we need to study and learn from? That's what we simply mean. And these should be done in any of these areas. The political areas, what should we be looking at? Internally, marketing or management or finance, in each and every one of them. So you see that it's broad. As you're looking at it now, don't be seeing just one small page of diagram. Be seeing a bulky stuff. Okay, yeah, it's actually elaborative, very very elaborative. So it's actually elaborate. So you need to check out uh, each and every one of them. And when you're doing that, what are you looking for? What are you looking for? Number one, what variables are we monitoring? So if you're looking at the economic environment, you'll be saying, okay, what's the dollar, what's the exchange rate, what's the inflation like, what are the government policies around economic issues, and so on and so forth. Those are variables. If you're looking at the social cultural environment, you'll be saying, okay, what's the population like? What's the population change like? What's the population distribution? What's their culture here? Culture go a lot to determine what you can sell and at what times you can sell them best. Okay, for example, that is number one. Number two, what are the questions that you need to ask around all those variables? And then what are other specific details that concern each of them? So I'll be seeing you in the next class. In the next class, we will jump straight to environmentalism as it is in your coursework. Oh my goodness, as it is in your coursework. So let's just jump there. I think I'm trying to see. Yeah, as it is in your coursework so that we can know what we're doing next. Okay, so read all these things about objectives also, and just seeing them and remembering that you need to read all those things. If you want to get an A this year, don't look at the past question. Look at the past questions and read read the things that you don't find in the past questions. Okay, good. So these are the things we'll be discussing. And we'll be going deep. We'll be looking at the issues one after another. Okay, so that brings us to the end of tonight's session. And I want to thank you for making that time to come attend tonight. I can only see 14. Okay, if I remove my other self now, it will just be 13 of us or 12 of us. All the same, I appreciate you. Study, just do your study. If you have any question, Lecky, Prosper, your hand is raised up. Is it an old one or a new one? If you're talking, you're muted. All right. So if there's no response from that, we just assume that everything is okay. Like I said to 300 level students yesterday, the beautiful thing about this year is that your exam timetable is looking at you in the face right now. Okay, I'm saying that to threaten you. Seriously, I'm not saying I will not threaten you. I want to threaten you. Your exam timetable is looking at you in the face. I was glad when I saw it. Okay, so anything you do now, be very very cautious. Okay, very cautious, so that you won't be taken unawares. Right. All right. Thank you very much for tonight's session. I'm going to stop the recording now, and then we can all go and have a good night's rest. I pray I can have some too.